Officer Daniels followed the footprints into the warehouse, unaware that every step he took had already been predicted by the person he was hunting. A lone man had been spotted wandering near an abandoned warehouse at the far edge of the industrial district, a place mostly forgotten except for the occasional truck passing by. The caller reported that the man appeared confused and kept circling the same broken fence. Officer Daniels and Officer Lee were sent to check it out, unaware that their body cams were about to record the first steps into a case far more disturbing than anything they expected. When they arrived, the night felt heavier than usual, as though the air itself was resisting their presence. Their flashlights cut across the empty lot, revealing rusted metal, shattered glass, and weeds growing through cracked pavement. The figure reported by the caller was nowhere in sight. Instead, faint footprints led toward the warehouse entrance, each step pressed into the dirt as if made in a hurry. The officers followed the trail, their body cams capturing every movement, including the subtle trembling in the grass as if something had passed by only moments earlier. The warehouse looked abandoned for years, but something about it felt freshly disturbed. The sliding door was slightly open, leaving a narrow gap of darkness. As they pushed it aside, the sound echoed loudly, bouncing off the hollow walls. Inside, the smell of damp concrete mixed with something metallic, a smell that grew stronger as they walked farther in. Their flashlights revealed scattered trash, torn fabric, and signs of recent activity despite the building's decaying appearance. The deeper they moved, the clearer it became that someone had been living there, or at least using the space regularly. They reached a large room near the center of the warehouse, and their body cams recorded the moment both officers froze at the sight before them. Strange symbols covered the walls, drawn with blackened streaks that looked rushed yet intentional. In the middle of the room was a dark stain spread across the floor, its edges dried but uneven, as though something had been dragged. Small objects were scattered around the stain buttons, pieces of paper, and what appeared to be a broken necklace. The silence in the room was overwhelming, pressing against their ears like a warning. What had started as a routine welfare check now felt like the beginning of something much more sinister. The warehouse wasn't just abandoned. It was hiding a story, one filled with fear, secrets, and a presence that lingered long after the officers stepped inside. The footage captured everything, marking the first chapter of a mystery that would soon unravel into darkness far beyond what anyone had imagined. The investigation moved quickly after the unsettling discovery in the warehouse. By sunrise, the building was surrounded with police tape, forensics vans, and officers carefully stepping around every piece of debris. The bodycam footage from the night before played a major role in guiding the forensic team, allowing them to pinpoint areas that needed closer examination. What looked like random clutter began forming a disturbing pattern as each item was collected, labeled, and analyzed. Among the scattered objects, a few stood out more than others: a torn wallet with no identification inside, a bracelet bent out of shape, and a set of keys with no matching lock nearby. Every item hinted at someone who might have been inside that room against their will. Technicians dusted the strange symbols on the walls, discovering that several layers had been painted over repeatedly, suggesting long-term use of the space. Under blacklight, faint outlines of earlier markings appeared, revealing symbols similar to the newer ones, but arranged differently, almost as if someone had been testing patterns. Near the far corner, investigators found a collection of small bags, each containing personal items belonging to different individuals. Some held rings, others held scraps of clothing. None of the items matched the missing persons cases currently active in the area, leaving more questions than answers. Outside the warehouse, officers canvassed nearby residents and workers. One elderly man mentioned unusual activity in the late hours: footsteps, dragging sounds, and flashes of light, but he assumed it was just trespassers or teenagers exploring abandoned buildings. Another resident reported seeing a person in a dark hoodie entering the warehouse many times over the past few months, but always at night and always alone. Surveillance footage from a small convenience store 2 blocks away provided the only visual evidence: a shadowed figure walking toward the warehouse, head lowered, hands hidden in oversized sleeves. The figure never looked up, avoiding every camera angle as though they knew exactly where the blind spots were. Inside the forensic lab, early results revealed traces of multiple DNA profiles in the warehouse, though most were partial and too degraded for immediate identification. The size and placement of the stains on the floor pointed toward repeated acts of violence, each one occurring in the exact same area. Analysts noted a disturbing level of organization in how the items were arranged, suggesting not chaos but a routine. Even the footprints leading into the warehouse indicated a habitual path. By the end of the second day, detectives realized they weren't dealing with a random crime scene. The warehouse had been used for months, possibly longer, by someone who knew how to avoid detection. The evidence didn't just point toward wrongdoing, it hinted at an ongoing pattern, one that had been carefully hidden in plain sight until a single 911 call brought everything to light. Progress on the case stalled until one of the forensic analysts made a discovery that shifted the investigation in an entirely new direction. While reviewing the photographs taken inside the warehouse, the analyst noticed something unusual in the reflection of a cracked mirror hanging on the far wall. Behind what appeared to be solid concrete, a faint outline suggested the presence of a concealed doorway. It was nearly invisible in person but captured by the body cam footage at the right angle. This detail, almost overlooked, became the key that opened the next part of the mystery. A specialized team returned to the warehouse to examine the wall more closely. Using thermal imaging, they detected a temperature difference behind the surface. After hours of careful work, a hidden latch was discovered under a loose brick. When pulled, a narrow section of the wall shifted, revealing a cramped passageway coated in dust and cobwebs. The air inside was stale, untouched for a long time, but preserved in a way that suggested deliberate sealing. As officers squeezed through the tight entrance, their body cams recorded every inch of the dim corridor. The path curved downward, leading to a small room beneath the warehouse floor. Inside that hidden chamber, investigators uncovered a disturbing collection of notebooks stacked from floor to ceiling. Each notebook was meticulously organized, filled with precise handwriting that detailed dates, locations, descriptions, and numbers that matched none of the known victims. Some entries referenced individuals never reported missing, suggesting the crime stretched far beyond earlier estimates. The journals described movements, habits, and vulnerabilities of various people, recorded with a level of observation that indicated weeks, sometimes months of monitoring before anything happened to them. It became clear that whoever wrote these entries had been planning every action with chilling accuracy. Alongside the notebooks were maps marked with circles and lines connecting areas throughout the city. Some locations were familiar from the warehouse evidence, while others were unfamiliar or remote. Detectives began linking names found in the journals with missing persons cases from neighboring counties. Many of the connections were previously overlooked because the victims appeared unrelated, yet the notebooks tied them together with disturbing clarity. As the team continued searching the chamber, they discovered a metal case hidden beneath a loose floor tile. Inside it were identification cards, photographs, and small personal items belonging to individuals who had vanished years earlier. These items confirmed that the warehouse wasn't just a temporary hideout, it was part of a larger, long-term operation. The discovery of the hidden room forced investigators to reconsider everything they thought they knew. The perpetrator wasn't impulsive or careless. They were patient, organized, and strategic. The body cam footage from the moment the room was open captured the officers' silent recognition that they were facing someone far more dangerous than they had imagined. The investigation was no longer about a single location or a few victims. It had evolved into a hunt for a methodical predator who had stayed invisible for far too long. The discovery of the hidden room pushed the investigation into darker territory, but nothing prepared the team for the next revelation. While reviewing one of the older notebooks, a detective noticed a series of entries describing movements that occurred only days before the warehouse was discovered. These notes were not written like past observations. They were frantic, marked by uneven lines, as though the writer had been in a hurry. One entry repeatedly mentioned a remaining piece and referenced coordinates that led to an area beneath the warehouse foundation. The tone suggested urgency, almost fear, as if the writer believed someone else was closing in. This unusual shift in behavior encouraged investigators to revisit the warehouse with specialized ground-penetrating equipment. The scans revealed hollow spaces beneath the concrete floor, deeper than the chamber already found. A team began carefully removing debris and breaking through layers of cement until they reached a concealed entrance sealed with metal plating. When opened, a narrow stairway descended into a deeper, colder space. The officers' body cams captured the unsettling sight as they stepped into a room designed to be completely soundproof. Thick padding lined the walls and ceiling, and a heavy door with reinforced locks stood at the opposite end. Dust covered most surfaces, but a few footprints suggested recent activity. Inside the locked room, investigators found something they had never expected. One of the missing individuals, long presumed dead, sitting weak but alive. The person was disoriented, unable to explain how long they had been there, yet their survival contradicted every assumption previously made about the case. Medical teams were rushed in, and the survivor was taken to a hospital, leaving behind more questions than answers. Back at the command center, analysts reviewed the final pages of the notebooks, which revealed a chilling twist. The perpetrator had been aware of the police for months. They had deliberately left misleading trails, manipulated timelines, and even staged evidence to slow the investigation. Several entries hinted at someone watching the officers during their earlier visits to the area, noting the exact times patrol cars passed by and predicting law enforcement's likely next steps. The realization spread through the team like a shockwave. The perpetrator wasn't reacting to the investigation, they had been controlling it. The discovery of the survivor was not a mistake but a message, a sign that the perpetrator was still active and confident enough to stay close. The warehouse was not a hiding place. It was a controlled environment designed to keep investigators chasing ghosts. As officers reviewed the final pages, one detail chilled them more than anything else, a note stating that the final observation would take place soon, written in fresh ink. It became clear the perpetrator had been present recently, perhaps even while officers were searching above. The investigation, once centered on the warehouse, expanded into a city-wide alert. Someone with patience, intelligence, and a disturbing need for control was still out there, watching everything unfold exactly as they intended. The investigation reached its most critical point when analysts traced a digital clue hidden within one of the notebooks. A coded series of numbers corresponded to timestamps rather than locations, each matching moments when officers' body cams had recorded unusual interference during the early searches. This discovery suggested that the perpetrator had been monitoring police communication and camera feeds in real time. Detectives realized the person responsible had access to equipment far more advanced than anything found in the warehouse. The clue led them to a single location, an abandoned roadside motel on the outskirts of town that had been closed for years due to structural damage. Its isolated position made it the perfect place for someone to operate without drawing attention. Teams were dispatched immediately. As officers approached the motel, their body cams recorded peeling paint, shattered windows, and overgrown weeds climbing across cracked pavement. The building appeared lifeless, yet something about it felt occupied. A faint light flickered behind a boarded-up window, barely noticeable from the road. The officers moved quietly, spreading out to cover all exits while a small team forced the door open. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old wood, but scattered footprints on the floor indicated someone had been pacing recently. The search led them to room 6 at the far end of the second floor. The door was locked from the inside, so officers used a battering tool to break it open. The body cams captured the moment the door swung forward, revealing a room transformed into an organized hub. Tables were lined with files, photographs, and electronic devices connected by a network of cables. Maps similar to the ones found in the warehouse covered the walls, but these were more recent and marked with symbols that appeared to track police movements over the last several weeks. At the center of the room sat the perpetrator, calm and motionless, as though waiting for the officers to arrive. They made no attempt to flee, offering no resistance as they were restrained. On a nearby table, investigators found a laptop still running software capable of intercepting and scrambling body cam signals, confirming how the perpetrator had stayed ahead for so long. A second metal case contained additional personal items from victims, proving their direct involvement in the long list of disappearances. The arrest, though swift, left a lasting impact on everyone involved. The footage showed how meticulously the perpetrator had constructed every step, from hiding evidence to manipulating the investigation's direction. It became clear that the warehouse, the notebooks, and even the discovery of the survivor had all been pieces of a much larger plan meant to prolong the game. The capture brought the operation to an end, but it didn't erase the unsettling truth uncovered during the case. Someone with extraordinary patience and intelligence had operated in the shadows for years, unnoticed and unhindered. As the case closed, the community struggled to process the magnitude of what had been found. The body cam recordings, once routine documentation, became critical evidence that unraveled the truth. The story spread far beyond the town, serving as a chilling reminder of how easily darkness can blend into ordinary places and how a single overlooked detail can open the door to horrors long hidden.